So the only person who's going to be recorded on here is me. Once we open it up at some point, when anyone's going to share, the recording will be stopped. Just so everybody knows that. Okay, so there'll be times for people to share, the recordings will be stopped, so nobody else will be recorded. So everybody understands that. Again, this recording will be posted as soon as the Zoom meeting's closed up. I post it immediately. Okay. Again, I want to make sure everyone's got something to read. Someone's got something to write on, paper, pen. My name's Brian. I'm a recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date's February 2nd, 1997. For that, I'm very grateful. I know there's somebody that's unmuted. I think it's Daniel. Hey, nope, somebody else is. I'm hearing another. Anyway, let's see. My name's Brian, recovered alcoholic. And let's open this set aside. Let's open this first with a moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic. Man, we can't forget about those. And that could be a guy sitting in the meeting, suffering. I've met a lot of people suffering, sober, suffering, man. Anyway, let's take a moment and think of those people that you might know. And we're going to follow that with the set aside prayer. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, about the big book, about these 12 steps. We're talking about putting aside everything you think you know, everything you think you know. Put it aside, because some of the things I know have helped me. So let's put it aside, all right? So about the 12 steps, about the big book, about other conceptions, other spiritual conceptions, all right? God, so I can have an open mind and a new experience with all these things, with all those things, even with myself, have a new experience with myself, right? Please help me see the truth in all these things. Amen. This whole thing's all about me seeing my truth. I saw my truth in step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7, again in step 9, even in step 10. Again, I just want to reference step 10 just for a second before we get into 11. And I'm just going to go back here to page, I think it was page 85. And I'm just going to read that last paragraph, or actually the last 2 before going into 11. Okay, because I'm going to reference this later on. So I'm on page 85, and I'm right in the middle of the page. After those 10-step promises that I had read, and then it goes, it's easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. Again, I want you to remember, you know, I could easily rest on my laurels. Anybody could rest on your laurels and go, well, I got 6 months of sobriety. Oh, I don't need to do this so hard. I don't need to be so disciplined and do this every day and all of that. You see what I'm saying? That's why it says it's easy to let up on a spiritual program of action. That's exactly what it says. So that's what we're doing. It's a process of a spiritual program of action. This is the process that we're doing. Okay. It's easy to let up on that and rest. It's so easy to do that. Again, I got to, going back to the previous page on 84, we learned about watching and having awareness. Now we're taking that and watching and having awareness of me resting on my laurels. It's that important, because if I don't keep aware of that and watching, the very next line says, this is what's going to happen. It says, we are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. It's telling me if I don't watch out for that, I'll drink again. Again, you got to understand, we talked about the ego, conscious, unconscious, right? Ego is cunning, baffling, and powerful. The ego is. Okay, so we're talking about easy to let up on a spiritual program of action. Again, I'm consciously aware, right? I'm going to let up on the spiritual program of action, and I'm going to rest on my laurels as my awards. My laurels is my accomplishments, my sobriety, right? I've been sober this long. Okay, you guys follow me with that? That's the ego talking to you. That's that ego talking to you. You see, I want you to remember what I was talking about before, self defeated self. Again, okay? It's easy to let up. It's easy to let up on this because you know what? It takes discipline to do meditation and prayer. It takes discipline. Now it's telling me it's easy to let up on this. So I'm making sure you understand that that's a big warning. Okay. So even when we start doing this, okay, and it says what we really have is a daily reprieve, a pardon. Reprieve is a pardon. And contingent is dependent on the maintenance. Maintenance would mean maintenance is to maintain something, which means I got to maintain my house, right? I just bought a brand new air conditioner last year for like $10,000, right? Okay, brand new for my house. Okay, you see, it's improving. You see, so maintenance is not maintaining; it's always improving to make better. You think about it when you're working on your house or doing you're always making it improve, right? Right? Okay, so maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will in all our activities. So you got to know what God's will is for all your activities. Remember how we went over that and I gave you the list, right? How can I best serve these? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts that must go with us constantly, all the time. How can I serve God? That's the only way I can keep the ego right sized. Period. Right there. These are thoughts that must go with me constantly. Why? Because the ego's cunning, baffling, and powerful. He wants me to rest on my laurels all the time. You find, you see, he wants to defeat me. He wants me to get out of recovery. He wants me to get out of AA. He don't want me to do none of this because this is all about God. And the ego, God is ego's enemy in a sense. You know what I mean? The God, because the ego doesn't want anything to do with God, because when you got God in your life, that's going to get the ego. The ego has to be humble to get him to right sized. Without God, I'm defeated. Without God, I'm defeated. That's why we need God. But not only do we need God, but we need another person, another human being. That's why in step 5, we share it with somebody else. I need somebody else, a sponsor preferably. I need somebody else that I can share with and they can understand. They can see me for who I really am, my truth. And a lot of times when I sponsor people, man, I can see the truth before they can even see it. You know, these are thoughts that must go with us constantly. Okay, remember that. I got to bring these thoughts constantly. I got to know what vision God's will is for me on all my activities and what's, God, how can I best serve God? These are thoughts to go with me constantly. Now, I want you to tell you, I want to go back and talk just a second about all those groups that we created in the WhatsApp, all those groups in there that we've created. Now, I want to talk about, we created a 10-step. Okay. Now, throughout the day, I get these thoughts. Now, I do it automatically. I get a thought in here. God, take that away. I don't like it. Negative thought. Boom, it's gone. I just do it automatic. That doesn't mean God's going to take it away automatic, but I get into automatic to ask. As soon as I see it, as soon as I'm aware, to ask, take it away. Now, in that 10-step, I try to write it down because I do it in such a habit now, I don't even write it. So I try to post it in that group, what's going on with me to help you guys, to show you guys how to do it. Thoughts must go with us constantly. And what you realize in that 10-step WhatsApp group, that is all prayers. The whole thing is all prayers. It starts up with my creator or God and ends with the amen. We created a group of prayers. It's an amazing thing. When I'm struggling up here, because I struggle too, I go in there and oh my God, I'm reading all this stuff from all you guys and it just lifts me up. And we do the same thing with our morning meditation. We got a morning meditation group. And guess what? That's turning into all prayers too. You see what's happening is prayers are coming out of us now all over the place. Think about that. Because I'm in a different, remember, we entered the world of the spirit in step 10. We're in the spiritual realm now. Okay? Much has already been said about receiving strength. This is what we're going to receive from God. We have to enhance. We got this relationship with God. This relationship that I'm building with God started at step 5. When I took those 5 questions into meditation with God and said, "Hey God, how am I doing?" God's the architect. I'm just a laborer. I chop wood and carry water, right? God's going to tell me what to do, where I got to go do it. It says right here, much is already said about receiving strength, inspiration. Inspiration comes in my thoughts. I get inspired. Oh, where'd that come from? Right? Because we talked about God consciousness, a higher plane of consciousness, where these thoughts are going to come from. And then it says even direction from God, who has all knowledge and power. So I'm going to get direction, I'm going to get inspired, and I'm going to get strength from God. Okay? And how am I going to, it says, if we have carefully followed directions, now it's going to give me these promises right before we go into step 11. And I want you to be in the state of mind of that, what that's like. So I want you to think about this. Okay. Where are we at? If you have carefully followed direction, you have begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. And I'm going to tell you what I feel sometimes as I feel something flowing through me, because the idea of step 11 is to be a channel for God's power to flow through you to get to somebody else. I want to be an open channel. Step 10 taught us how to keep that channel open. Remember, I showed you the sheet, right? We always want to keep it open. When I'm over on that left side in that liabilities and I start getting resentful, I told you exactly what to do. Boom. As soon as I'm aware, ask. Right? I aware. That's what step 10 is. Aware, ask, pray. Right? Aware, ask. And then what am I asking? I'm asking for direction. You see? Okay. Where am I at here? It says, to some extent, we have become God conscious. Now, I'm telling you, that's begun right at the bottom of step 10. We're beginning to get this God consciousness. That's a higher plane of conscious. It's within our consciousness. It's just a higher plane. It's like at the top of the consciousness. I want you to think about it like that. Okay. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. Now, I know I went over this last week, but you got 5 senses. You got sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. I look at it as you got all 5 right on your head. Think about it, right? I can touch, I can feel, right? I can hear, I can see, I can smell, I can taste, right? But the 6th sense, I look at it as it's like the top of my head. And if I got blocked by resentment or fear or whatever, I can't open it up. I open up that 6th sense. So what I'm doing is when I go into meditation, because we're about to do that here, when I go into meditation, sometimes I get in touch. In the beginning, I used to get in touch with all my senses. Okay. I can feel the weight of my body in the chair or my back or whatever. I just a feel. And then I'm kind of just, what I'm doing is I'm looking around and just seeing color. What colors am I seeing in the room? You see how I'm getting in touch with my senses? What do I smell? I like to meditate outside so I can hear birds and I can smell flowers and you know what I mean, versus inside. But I get in touch with my senses, right? What do I hear? Sometimes I hear the fan going or something. And then it's touch, but that would be feel, sight, smell, taste. Okay. Now I don't usually taste anything. Okay. Air, whatever. But the whole point is to get present. Okay. By you getting in touch with your senses, you get really present enough to open up that 6th sense. Opens up that God consciousness within for you to be inspired, get strength and direction. Okay. Now, the next line says, now we're in this state of being now. We're in this state of being of receiving strength, direction, and inspiration from God who has all knowledge. Okay. This is what we're doing in the state of and we've just begun to develop this vital 6th sense. We've just begun. We're like in this adolescent. So now we got to work on it even harder to develop it. You understand? Okay. So with that state of being, now we're going to go into step 11. And it says step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. So it's telling me, don't be shy on this, which means shy is like, backing off and you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, kind of shy, closed off. You talk. Now it's telling me I can't be shy, which means I need to get in and do this, right? Whatever it is we're going to do, I need to get my hands dirty because I need to expand this God consciousness. Okay. It says better man than we are, using it constantly. There's that word again, constantly. So again, thoughts that must go with us constantly. And then it says, they use it. What are we using? We're going to use prayer and meditation constantly. So I want you to think back in step 10 when I introduced that 7-step prayer, right? That defect removal prayer. I got to use that thing constantly when I first got sober, constantly, because I had all this, you see what I'm saying? Constantly, all the time. I didn't have time to write. I'm in the military. Constantly, I'm in my head. God, remove this. God, remove that. God, remove this. All the time. You see, I get in that habit of being aware of watching. Okay. Now it's telling me about prayer and meditation, and it's saying better men than me use it constantly. And it says, what's the very next line? It works. It Works. You know what? I'm going to circle that, underline it. It works. It's telling us it works. And then it's saying if. The very next word is if. So this is going to work if you have the proper attitude and work at it. Okay, so what that means is it's not going to happen right away. It takes time. And I'm going to tell you in the beginning, when I first started doing written guidance, which is supposed to be what they call is like a stream of consciousness, when I first started doing that, I was just getting words. I was just getting, the birds are flying around, that's all I was getting. But that was okay because I was getting present in this moment, getting present to get ready to open up to receive God. And the more that I got myself present and ready, the day came when God started talking to me. Because all I was doing, when you're willing to listen, see, if you're willing to listen, God's going to speak to you. That is all I'm going to say about that. If you're willing to listen, if you're not willing to listen, then God's not going to speak. But if you're willing to listen and that channel is open, you're going to get moved. You're going to get moved by the things. You're going to be inspired, and then you're going to act on inspiration, on that inspiration. So what do you think the kind of proper attitude I got to have to go into meditation? That's always a good one. What's that mean by that proper attitude, right? Well, I think about going into meditation. One of the biggest attitudes I got to have is I got to be humble, right? Because I'm going into meditation, and I'm usually asking for help. So that comes from a humbling place of being. To me, when I come into meditation and I'm humble, I've already got that ego right sized to be able to listen. You see what I'm saying? To me, that attitude is being humble, in front of God. It would be easy to be vague about this matter. So what they're going to tell me, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. So they're not going to be vague. They're going to give us some direction again that we have to follow. So the first thing it's going to go into is it's going to go into when we retire at night. And so I often used to question that and go, why does this have night first? And then the next line it says in the morning and all that. But I'm going to tell you why it's written the way it is, because it's going to make sense. And you're going to go, oh, okay. So when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Constructively, which means I'm going to take a little bit of time, right? Constructively. Constructively. So I'm going to reconstruct my day and I'm going to review it. So again, whatever was not caught in your 10th step, you see, again, it's about 10th step as being awareness. Whatever was not caught throughout the day, because I feel like 10th step is like a net. And it's catching all them resentments and all that stuff. And then at the end, I just dump them all, give them to God, right? I mean, you see how I'm saying? So, I got to review my day. So whatever wasn't caught in my 10th step is going to come up now, okay, in my nightly review. Unless it was something that maybe, so sometimes for me, I might fall into self-pity. And I'm going to give you this example where, because I suffer from chronic pain. And anyway, so it's easy to go into that self-pity and feel sorry for myself and all that. And I talk about that because I used to do it a lot for other things. And now I do it again. And I'm like, but as soon as I'm aware that I'm in there, I immediately go, as soon as I'm aware in there. And sometimes it could be where I'm right on tears, right? And I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? Sometimes it takes me right to that point for me to go, I don't want to feel this. God, help me. And it's crazy because I'm in such a thing of doing it automatically that it automatically, as soon as I say, God, take it away, it vanishes. I don't even know how that works, but it vanishes. So I'm breaking right to the edge of tears, right? And all of a sudden, it's gone. I can feel it lifting. That's my experience. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because in the past, that shit would grab me and I'd be drunk and I'd be all fucked up and I'd destroy everything. I'm just sharing that because self-pity was huge. My ego doesn't always go. My ego, you're going to find out where your ego moves. Okay. So again, right size ego is in the middle. And I'm going to tell you, most of my life, my ego, I was always less than. That is my default. It's always less than. It's never great than. I've never felt better than anyone else. You know what I mean? That's the grandiosity and all that going the other way. For me, it's always the negative side. For me, it's always in the unconscious. It's always as a default setting. And then I'm aware. All of a sudden, I become aware that I'm over here. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't want to be here. But there's a way I can get out. And that's what I showed you. God, remove this from me and then change your thoughts to someone I can help. You see? So at night, we got to review our day. And that's going to start. I'm going to review my day from the moment I woke up. I'm going to review it. And the first thing that it says, were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Again, isn't it the same thing we did in step 10? Wasn't step 10 about the 4 absolutes? Remember that? Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear was in step 10. Now it's telling me the same thing: selfishness, dishonesty, and fear, right? It's the 4 absolutes all over again. We did the 4 absolutes in step 10, and now we got the 4 absolutes again. Okay, so where were we resentful? Were you angry? Were you resentful? You know, I don't write. No, I do this. This is a written thing. It's asking me questions. So when I write these questions down, when I write them, I write it like, no, I wasn't resentful, or yes, I was resentful, and then this is what I did at so and so, and I do column 1 or column 2. Sometimes when I do that, okay, sometimes my sponsor will see that. That's why it's important to post it in a group. My sponsor will see that, and guess what? He'll call me, go, dude, you want to do a column 3 on that? And guess what? I'll go, yeah, you think I should? And he's like, yeah, dude. And I do a column 3, and I have a whole new experience, and I get free from it. Okay, that's why it's so important to post, in those groups so sponsors and people can see that, to call us up and go, hey, man, what, you okay? You see, we're supposed to check on them, and we're supposed to check up on each other now at this point, right? You start to see stuff in the nightly review, call each other. Hey, man, you okay? Right? This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take care of each other. We're not in this together. We're not in this by ourselves. That isn't something. Remember back in step 1, I said the first one is we. We grow spiritually together. We grow on this path together. We walk this path together. And if you see somebody that's starting to, wander off, what do? Hey, get back on the path. What are you doing wandering off? Come back over here. Okay, sorry. Get me back on the path, you see? So were you resentful? So I write down where I was. Were you selfish? Now I might take something. There's a possibility, like when I hit selfishness, I might write, yes, I was selfish because I indulged in that self pity. You know what I mean? Like the thoughts came and I just sort of got all engulfed in it. You see? And then I was like, and then once I was in the middle of it, to me, I look at this as being selfish, like the ego, and I'm all in the middle of it. And then I'm like, I don't want to be here no more. You see, I'm feeling it. I don't want to be here because I don't like the way I'm feeling. Then I ask for help and then it's gone. So I'm using that as an example, just kind of see how. Then I would write something like, yeah, I was selfish by hanging on to this feeling or something. You see? But were you dishonest? Yeah. What do we call that? Dishonest deception of myself, thinking that, you know, from my ego, right? Was I dishonest? Believing my dishonest delusions about myself, right? Was I afraid? Now I break them down into 4 questions. And what I did is I had to do it that way because that's how it's done in step 4. I mean, step 10, each one is separate in 10, and each one's separate in 4. So I just separated each one. And what I did is I counted it out and I came up with 12 questions. I thought, hey, 12's great. So do you owe an apology? Again, if you remember, resentment, selfish, 4 absolutes, which come from step 4. Do you owe an apology? It's step 9. Now I want you to make it clear. An apology is something you did by accident. Make it clear. I bump into somebody, I make an apology. If I did it on purpose, it's an amends. I'm going to amend my behavior. You don't punch somebody in the face by accident. Okay? You got to amend your behavior. And how? By never doing that again. Never punching anybody, never hurting anybody again. You see, that's a huge amends. Okay? I punched somebody in the face, I hurt them, and I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to do that again because I don't want to hurt anybody. When I hurt somebody, I hurt myself. That's the truth. In sobriety, if I hurt somebody, I hurt myself because I got to go make amends. On top of that, have you kept something to yourself which should be discussed with another person at once? Again, step 5. You got any secrets? You holding on to something? You're holding on to something that's dragging you down, right? Something that's dragging you into the unconsciousness, right? Again, it could be fear or resentment or dishonesty. It could be something else, right? It could be something from the past that you remembered that you need to share. All right. And then it says, well, you're kind and loving toward all. Because remember, what was step 10? Again, what was our code? Love and tolerance. Now it's telling me, was I kind and love toward all? So where were you kind and loving? Don't make it always about negative. Write about where you were kind and loving. It's an inventory. It's not always about negative. It's about positive too. And what could you have done better? That one always gets me. What could I have done better? Ooh, sometimes I got to really think about it because especially if I had one of those perfect days, what could I have done better? Shit, no, nothing, dude. That was perfect. You know what I'm saying? I got to come up with something. I could have read more. I could have done more exercise. Could have drank more water. Whatever, right? What were you thinking? Were you thinking of yourself most of the time? Now you got to think about this. Were we taught not to do that in step three? In step three, we were taught not to think about ourselves all the time. See, it's asking you, are you going back and thinking about yourself all the time now? Or are we thinking about what we could do for others most of the time? See, am I thinking about myself or was I thinking about what can I do for others? Were we thinking of perhaps what we could do for others or what we could pack into the stream of life? You know, um, I like to think of what can I pack into life. Um, but it's more, I like to look at, you know, my thought life. Where was my thought life at? So I like to think of my thought life is what all your thoughts were throughout the day. That's your thought life, all of your thoughts. So what was majority of your thoughts focused on? So sometimes I write in my meditation, majority of my thoughts was just focused on me trying to be pain free. I got the TINS unit all on, and I'm just trying to, not do anything that's gonna, alleviate my blood pressure or whatever. I'm just, you see, sometimes that's where my thoughts are at. Sometimes my thoughts are just on helping others. So I would say most of my thought life was on helping others and being a service. What was your thoughts? Again, your thought life is your thoughts throughout the day, and it's asking you what was most of that. What was most of your thought life? I like these questions to really make me think. Now I'm going to tell you, if you've been doing this for a while, and because sometimes people get stale with this, right? Now it's going to give us a warning, but we must be careful not to drift in worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. So it's going to ask you, hey, did you drift there? Did you drift? Did your thinking drift into worry, remorse, or morbid? Sometimes mine does. Sometimes mine does. When I get into that self pity, it's morbid reflection. It is because I'm like, oh, what's going to happen in the future? And I get all fear comes in, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to be here. I don't like what I'm feeling. God help me. And then God takes me out of it. And then I'm like, why did I even let myself get all wrapped up and get into that? You know what I'm saying? Um, but when I'm in the middle of that funk, it diminishes my usefulness. You see, that's the biggest thing is when I'm in the middle of that and it's morbid reflection, right? And I'm in that self pity, it diminishes my usefulness. That's why when I'm in the middle of it, I say, God, remove this because I don't want it to diminish my usefulness. Okay. That's really what that's about with step seven. Remember that step seven, remove it from me, right? So I can be useful. After making my review, so after doing these questions, these are 11, the 12th question is next. It says, after making your review, we ask, which means it's a prayer. So now I'm going to go into prayerful consideration. Now, I'm going to ask God what forgiveness measures, and we ask God for forgiveness. I'm going to say, God, forgive me for my failings, right? Forgive me for holding on to the self-pity and hurting myself, or forgive me for being angry, you know? But so I'm going to ask God for forgiveness in this meditation. Ask God, and then I'm going to ask him what corrective measure I'm going to ask him specifically for direction. Because it says, what corrective measures should be taken on the answers to my questions? God's going to give me specific answers because I'm being really specific with the question. What should I do here with the, corrective measures on the answers to my questions? Because not all of them are going to be right all the time. After you've done this for a while, eventually it'll be nothing to be showing up. Now, once you get to that place, you let me know if you start to get bored with this nightly inventory, because I have a whole nother one where it completely breaks it all the way down and expands everything where you're going to find something. Again, sometimes we need to expand it into the unconsciousness. You see what I'm saying? Expand it more so that I can look in the shadows. You see? I can look at awareness. Again, step 10 is awareness. Okay. So I'm being aware. I'm acquiring this new awareness about myself, about my thoughts. Okay. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is a new experience. But I need to look, I need to look around right in the shadows because that's where my ego's at. And I got to bring God, bring that light into the shadows. Remember in Bill's story, it says, you know, selfishness, self-centeredness, you know, I must, what did he say? I must turn all things to the Father of light. I must turn all things that's within him to the Father of light. So when I put that light, I like to look at it like a flashlight, right? You see? I got a flashlight, right? I don't know if you can see that or not. But I'm trying to light up the darker, the unconsciousness, those shadows that are within my life. I want to light that up with the light of the Father of light, so I can see in there. And once that unconscious becomes light, right? I can inventory it. I can see what it is. I can inventory it, and I can be free. And then there's not stuff lurking in the shadows much. You see what I'm saying? This is all things about being free. How free do you want to be? Man, I don't know. Okay, but I feel like it's like I'm peeling layers of these onions off, and each time I do, I get freer. I don't know how free I'm gonna be at some point, but man, I'm experiencing it. And I'm at 28 years sober, and I'm still experiencing it. Still. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to any one of you. It can happen all the time. Once you start opening this consciousness to God and start developing that God consciousness is going to expand, because the unconsciousness that you've been living before you were awake is now conscious. So your consciousness has now expanded. And now you got God consciousness up in your consciousness now. And that's where I want to live. I want to tap into that God consciousness, right? And I like to live in there all the time. But the problem is my human condition. My human condition. I like to think I'm a spiritual being having a human condition. It's my human condition of the ego that pulls me out of that place. As much as I want to be in there 100% of the time, the ego is always going to pull me out of there, one way or another. So, but when I'm in that place, all right, you know what I'm talking about, I can tap into it and I can embrace that. And the whole thing's about experience, right? Man, my consciousness is about to expand. My God consciousness is going to expand. Okay. And all I got to do is start doing meditation, right? That's all I got to do. So I'm going to ask God, what corrective measures should be taken? I'm going to go into meditation and I'm going to write down what God's telling me to do. Remember, when it says in here, we ask God, that means we ask God. So I'm going to say specific, God, I'm asking God specific question. That means God's going to give me a specific answer. I need to write it down. And not only that, but a lot of times God speaks to me in prayers. My son, my precious child, that kind of thing. You see? And so, that's how I'm going to write it. I'm going to write it as I hear it. My precious child, don't be so hard on yourself. But remember, resentment or whatever it's going to come through, that's going to come through. And that's how I'm going to write it. Whenever it says, I ask God, then God's going to talk to me. Open up your ears. Listen. Guess what? We all got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You know what my sponsor told me about that? Okay, it wasn't Mark, it was Paul. Paul said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means you need to listen twice as much as you need to talk. That means that when you're in this relationship with God, you need to listen twice as much as you need to talk to God. That puts it on a whole nother level now. I need to listen. Listen to that voice within. What is it saying? I even forgot where I was at here. Okay. I'm going to the morning meditation on awakening. I haven't gone there yet, right? All right. On awakening, we're talking about awakening. I first opened my eyes, right? On awakening. I first opened my eyes. I'm laying in bed. Let us think about the day, about the 24 hours ahead. So I'm laying in bed. I ain't got out of bed yet. All right. And I'm thinking about what I got to do for the day. The first thing that comes to mind is coffee. So now I'm getting out of bed, making the coffee. That's just what I do. All right. I'm thinking about the 24 hours ahead. What am I going to do today? I'm in bed. And the first thing comes, I got to go coffee before I got to do anything, right? So I go make the coffee, right? And then I'm considering my plans for the day as I'm making the coffee. Okay. I think I need to make this phone call. I need to do this, right? Considering my plans. Before I begin what? Before I begin starting my day, before I begin executing my plans, before I do any of that, I'm going to ask God, which means I'm going to go into meditation, and I'm going to ask God, God, direct my thinking. So I want God to direct my thinking, because I know my thinking's all messed up from step 3. And I already know, again, I already told you, all right, I want to be in the spiritually fit state all the time, but my ego always pulls me out. Okay? So I'm going to ask God to direct my thinking now, especially asked that it be divorced. That's a huge word, divorced. Now, I've been divorced, okay? I live 2,500 miles from my ex-wife. That's divorced, okay? That means completely separated. Completely. There is no connection at all to what? To self-pity. To self-pity. I still deal with that now because of my current condition. I deal with that, okay? But I ask every day to be divorced from that. So when it happens, I become aware. Again, then I go to step 10, ask God to remove it. I listen for direction. Go help somebody. Again, we go right back to step 10, right? We ask God to direct our thinking. God, give me direction. Direct me. Where do I direct my thinking? Especially has to be divorced from self-pity. Dishonest delusion. Remember those dishonest delusions from that third column, right? So not only divorce it from self-pity, divorce it from dishonest delusion. Divorce me from my ego. Divorce me from my ego. And self-seeking actions, self-seeking motives. Remember those self-seeking actions that came up in that fourth column of the resentment? So divorce me from the delusions and the self-seeking actions, right? My motives. It says, under these conditions, under what conditions? The conditions of asking God to divorce me from self-pity, dishonest delusion, self-seeking action motives, then I can employ my mental faculties. I can employ, that means I can, wait a minute, I can employ my mental faculties, right? Which means what? I could use, employ means use, right? So now it's telling me I can use my mental faculties, I can use my brain with assurance. After all, God gave me brains to use. So I'm telling you, what I circled in my book was I put where it says us, I wrote me. God gave me brains to use. And I circled that in my book. God gave me brains to use. Now it's telling me I can start thinking for myself. I can start using my brain. Why? Because I've had an experience and the unconscious has become conscious. You remember before we talked about on average, we only use 10% on our brain? And that 10% was conscious and 90% was unconscious. Well, now let's throw that stuff right out the window, okay? Because once the unconscious becomes conscious, these numbers don't even make any sense no more, okay? But what makes sense is that my consciousness is going to expand. And when my consciousness expands, so does my brain, because God says, now that your consciousness expands, you can start using your brain now. Start making better decisions. You don't make decisions that put yourself in a position to be hurt anymore. You see how you start making better decisions. So God gave me brains to use. Oh yeah, I already okay. I'm sorry, I wrote something in my book and I was trying to read what I wrote. And I just wrote that God gave me brains to use. He's telling me I can use my brains because my consciousness is expanding now. Now, I'm going to tell you how to expand your consciousness. Okay. I Googled it today. I was just looking it up. I wanted to see how to expand your consciousness. You can do that through education. Go to school, right? And it also says you can also expand your consciousness by experience. By experience. Like I said, these are steps that you experience days. You know, you're going to experience step 11, living in this, man. All right. Now it says our thought life. Remember our thought life back in step 10. Now it's going to say our thought life. So remember, I changed the word our to my. My thought life will be placed on a much higher plane. We're talking about my thought life is going to be placed on a much higher plane. Why? When our thinking is clear of the wrong motives from the ego. When my thinking is clear of the wrong motives from the ego. You know, my thought life will be placed on a much higher plane of consciousness. A much higher plane of consciousness when my thinking have cleared its wrong motives from the ego. A much higher plane of consciousness. We're talking about, again, right at the bottom of step 10, on the last page, they talked about God conscious. Now we're going to go God consciousness. Again, I was saying God consciousness is like inner consciousness, but it's up higher. Now they're talking about a higher plane of consciousness. We're talking about the God consciousness is what they're talking about, right? So my thought life will be placed on a much higher plane. God consciousness when our thinking is clear of wrong motives from the ego. You see, my thinking's clear of wrong motives. And thinking about, in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. Again, What does it say? We may not be able to determine which course to take. Again, during the day, anytime during the day. Now we're doing step 10 all the time. We're doing step 10 constantly, right? We're like, oh, okay, where are we at, right? But it's becoming awareness, right? You're getting this awareness about yourself. When you become aware, you ask God to remove it, and you be free from it, right? Now it's telling me, okay, so now I may be indecisive. I don't know. I can't make a decision. What do I do? What do I do? Well, here it's telling me, ask God. So I got to pause for a second again, right? I'm indecisive. Moment I'm getting indecisive, I got to pause. Pause. Time out. I got to go pray somewhere. I'm going to ask God, God, give me inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. God, what should I do? Because I'm afraid to make this decision because I might hurt myself. I might put myself in a position to be hurt, right? Or, right, if I'm not sure, I need to ask God. And then I need to listen. Anytime it says we ask God, that means you got to listen twice as hard as you're asking, right? What is God really saying to you? It says we relax. So I'm pausing. I'm asking God for inspiration, intuitive thought, and a decision. Now it's telling me, I relax, I take it easy. I have to relax and take it easy, and I don't struggle. If I'm struggling and I'm not relaxed and I'm not taking it easy, how can I receive the direction that God's supposed to tell me? Think about that. So I have to be relaxed, taking it easy. I like to think when I'm asking God for help, I'm in this meditative, comfortable position. You see, I'm relaxed. I'm taking it easy. I'm listening. I'm not struggling. This is not something you can force to happen. It just, once you clear that channel, man, that shit's going to just happen. It's just going to happen. It just takes time to work at it, okay? Uh, we're often surprised. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. You see, on the top of the page, it says it works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. Now, on the bottom of the page, often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. So again, the right answers are not going to come right away. We got to work at it, develop it, right? Mold it. It says what used to be a hunch, gradually what used to be a hunch or an occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. A working part of the mind. Again, my consciousness is expanding. It's again, that's the third time it mentioned my mind, right? The other two, the other said brains and then mental faculties, right? So that's third time now. It's talking about our brain. Again, we're expanding our consciousness. Start using that. Tap into that God consciousness. Expand that God consciousness by prayer meditation. So keep growing. What's step 11? Suggest prayer meditation to improve. You know what the word improve means? To expand and enhance. Man, I love that. To enhance and expand my God consciousness within here. Right? Um, being still an experience. This is how I am every day I wake up. Every day I wake up. I just woke up. I just got my cup of coffee and I'm inexperienced. Why? Because I've been sleeping and I've been sleeping in the unconscious state of being for the last 6 or 7 hours. Think about that. You've been sleeping. You're not conscious. You've been unconscious. So I'm coming out of the unconscious state of being. I get a cup of coffee and I go sit down, being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God. Okay, I'm going to sit down, got my cup of coffee. I'm just making conscious contact with God. Again, first thing in the morning, being inexperienced. Why? Because I've been unconscious, sleeping. That's my inexperience. I wake up, get my coffee. Now I'm just making conscious contact. I'm just making conscious contact with God. Now it's going to give me a warning. All right. I'm doing that in the morning. I'm going to just make conscious contact. It is not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. Again, we're in our adolescent. We're just starting to do this. I'm not going to get inspired all the time. We might pay for this presumption, all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on a plane of inspiration. We come to rely on our thinking. We come to rely on that. Up here, it becomes a working part of the mind. Inspiration. We're living in this God consciousness now, a higher plane of consciousness. We just learn to rely on that. It's a plane of inspiration. Anytime I go into this God conscious and meditation, man, I get all inspired all the time. It says we usually conclude a period of meditation with a prayer. Again, more morning meditation. What that we should be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. And that we'll be given whatever to take care of such problems. Again, I'm going to get whatever I need, power, strength to do God's will, whatever that might be. I don't have to worry about, am I going to be strong enough to do this? I don't have to worry about that. I'm safe and protected. I just go do it. I just go do it. You know, the only time I ask for strength and direction is for him to remove something from me, and then I got to act a different way. So I'm going to need strength to flip it. If I'm being selfish, I need strength to flip and be unselfish, right? You see what I'm saying? If I'm dishonest, I need that strength. So I'm always going to ask for that to do the opposite. It says right here, oh, we ask. Another meditation, ask. Especially from freedom from self-will, freedom from my ego. Relieve me of freedom from the bondage of self, and are careful to make no requests for ourselves. Again, that goes all the way back to Bill's story when Ebby was telling him, you can't pray for yourself. I don't know what page. I think it's on 14 or 15. I think it's on 14 at the bottom of the page, right? We are careful not to pray for our own selves. Again, it's reminding us here. I can't pray for myself. I don't know. I prayed for the lottery a couple times. I never got it, right? I prayed for the girlfriend. I never got that either. But when I prayed for serenity and peace, I got that. I got that. But I didn't get the girl, and I didn't get the good job. You see? Because that's what I wanted. I didn't know I wanted peace and serenity until I got it. You see, I'm just showing you how it's easy to pray for selfish things. I'll be good, God. Just give me that girl, right? I'll be good. Just let me get that job, right? Let me get that house. I'll be good. I promise. Okay. That's how I used to pray. You know, it changes up, and now none of that matters, right? Again, we got a warning. All right. It says we can ask for ourselves if others will be helped. Okay. God, take this away so I can be more useful. Then we got a warning. We are careful never pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us waste it all. Again, I already just went over that, and you can see why, right? Again, the next paragraph is all about people joining us and doing this together. And so if circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or best friends to join us in morning meditation. Again, everything we've talked about goes all the way back to awakening. From awakening, right? All the way to the next page, he's still talking about morning meditation. So come join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. If not, also, which means we're going to do this morning meditation, and then we're going to do whatever our church requires us to do. Also, you see, doesn't mean we do that in lieu of not doing this. We got to do this, and then we go do that. You understand what I'm saying? Nod, yes. Anyway, we sometimes select and memorize a few step prayers. 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer. I use 7th step prayer all the time. We select and memorize a few step prayers. Again, each step is given you, each step, when you get to each step, you got to use everything that you've used previously up to the step. You see how we're doing that? Okay. Which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. There are many helpful books. What it's telling me, I can use a bunch of set prayers. Now it's telling me there are many helpful books. I like to read the 24-hour day book. Right here. This is old school. This one's from 1978. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I love this book. AA Thought for Today. It's not even conference approved. It was written by a bunch of AA members. That's why I like it. Okay. So now at this point, it's telling me I can expand my spiritual growth. Like looking outside other books. And you know, that's why I set up those other groups with Harry Tebow and talk about the ego factors and surrender. Did that one about Tom Powell because I can keep expanding and I can keep growing. Okay, I can keep growing. Suggestions about these may come from a priest, minister, rabbi. Be quick to see religious people right. Make use of what they offer. Again, put it in your toolbox. Make use. As we go through the day, we pause. Again, there it really says. Now it's saying we go through the day. I'm going to pause when I'm agitated, a little bit of resentful, or I got some doubtful. I'm going to ask. Again, I pray. So I'm going to pause and I'm ask God, God, give me the right thought or action. Tell me what to do. Right thought or action. We constantly, there's that word again, constantly. It's referring back to step 10. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. Wasn't that what it says in step 10? Constantly. These are thoughts that go with it constantly, right? Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, humbly saying to myself each time, each day. I do this when I do step 10. When I go into step 10 and I go, God, remove this from me, what do I say? Thy will be done. I do that many times in my head. It's part of my step 10. It's part of my step 10. When I say, God, remove this, I say, thy will be done. That's why it says we're going to say this many times through each day, because I'm adding 10 into 11. I'm doing 10 and 11 together. You see, 11 starts in the morning. When I wake up, I do morning meditation. And then from that moment on until I do my nightly review, it's all step 10. And you got little bits and pieces of 11. Indecisive, doubtful. I'm going to pause. I'm going to ask God, tell me what to do. It's so important to understand that and to tap into that power. We're talking about God's power. It's the power of what? And Bill's, I think it was in Bill's story, talked about the power that pulled Ebby from the gates of death back to life. That's some amazing, that's way more powerful than my ego. That's something I can believe in, right? Because I can feel that sometimes. Now we got some promises, but I want you to think about this. It says we are then in much less danger. But I want you to think about these promises as being the opposite, the unconsciousness. Okay? What's the unconsciousness? Excitement, danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, and foolish decisions. That's all in the unconsciousness, right? But as long as we follow this prayer and meditation, it says we are then in much less danger of being in the unconsciousness. Much less danger. Why? Because we're conscious, we're keeping that conscious contact with God. And that by us doing that and keeping that conscious contact as long as I can, that keeps that ego right sized. It says, now, as I'm doing this and expanding my God conscious with morning meditation, nightly review, we become much more efficient. We don't tire so easily, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange light to suit ourselves back when we did in step 3, right? Now, like I said, I don't even manage my life. I don't even manage my life. My life just goes. I don't have to try to manage it and try to micromanage everything. I just let everything just kind of be. If bill comes in, I pay it. That's the most logical thing. A bill comes in, I pay it. And I don't have to worry about, I mean, you know, I wasn't taught how to do those things. I struggled with that for a while, you know. But when I'm into that spiritual stuff, right, all kinds of miracle things will happen. I tap into that power of God. I'm tapping into something really powerful. Uh, it says it works. It really does. That's the shortest paragraph in the big book. It works. It really does. We alcoholics aren't disciplined, so we like our discipline in a simple way. We have just outlined. You know what? In my book, I highlighted that as a warning. We alcoholics are undisciplined. I highlighted it pink as a warning. I need to be disciplined. I'm undisciplined by nature. By nature, I'm undisciplined. I want to rebel. I want to be like, I don't want to do this. But I know today that's my ego. That is my ego going, I'm not even going to try it. I'm not even going to do this. That's my ego already defeating me. I'm already defeated. And Sean hasn't even asked me to try it yet. I'm already defeated by myself. You see? You see? So I'm sharing my personal experience to hope that it'll help you. And you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did. Now, so we let God discipline us. We're going to let God discipline us. Look at that. That's a major. We're going to let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But that is not all. There is action, more action. The next chapter is devoted to helping others. So again, the only limitation I have to spiritual growth, the only limitation I have to spiritual growth is me. It's my ego that's going to get in the way of my spiritual growth. That's it. That's my only limitation is my ego. My only limitation. That's why we have to keep it right-sized and keep these thoughts constantly. Constantly, how can I serve you, God? What can I do for you? All the time. And eventually, it's not going to be like you think it's like. At first, it was like that all the time. I'd put these little messages everywhere, in my car, and the windshield, and on the mirror in the bathroom. I had all these little, But it all kind of helped out. All right. Let's see. Where did I go here? Oh, back in step 3, we made a decision to turn our thinking and our actions over to the care of God as we understood. All our future thinking, all our future actions. This doesn't mean that we simply reach a comfortable plateau in our level of spiritual growth. Because I used to think, 10 and 11, you're just going to coast, right? I'm going to hit a certain level. Boo! I'm going to be good to go, right? And we don't get there, and we don't get to a certain place of spiritual growth, remain there, right? The natural law of the universe is change. Either you're going to grow or you're going to go, right? So our connection with our higher power must be tended to on a regular basis, almost constantly. Constantly got to tend that. Much the same way a garden needs constant attention in order to flourish. I want you to think of it as it's a spiritual garden now, right? And you got to start having this awareness about yourself as the weeds of resentment and self-pity start to pop through the soil. You're just watching. I'm watching. I'm having this new awareness. When I see something start popping through the soil, boom, God. You see? That's what I'm doing. I'm asking God it wants to God. I'm not the one removing it. I'm going to say, God, it's right over there. God, go get that, right? Right there. Now, that does sound kind of ego, and I know I'm kind of, saying it like that, but that's kind of how it is in a sense. When I become aware, I go, God, hey, take this away, right? I don't want to feel this. Okay. Again, take away this weed. I don't want it to grow and fester because it'll destroy my life. Resentment's number one offender. I can't afford it. I cannot afford it. Okay. Sometimes I got to learn to have thicker skin and just let things roll off my back and not be so sensitive. Okay. If we neglect our garden and the weeds grow, much like our character defects, soon the weeds take over the garden. So if we desire to live in harmony and peace in this world, we must continue to grow spiritually. Spiritual growth requires us to improve our conscious contact with our higher power. We achieve this through prayer and meditation. So prayer is asking. Meditation is listening. Again, if you look through the book, anytime it says we ask, it's prayer. So meditation is listening. I have 2 ears, 1 mouth. So when I ask, I need to listen twice as much, you know? So again, prayer is asking, meditation is listening. It's the same thing with any relationship you have with anybody. You're gonna talk, and then you're gonna listen. You see? Any relationship. This is a relationship between you and your higher power, you and God. You got to improve that relationship. I get the right attitude, right? When we ask God for direction and strength, we are calling upon the spirit of the universe for guidance, for the power to overcome our difficulties. It is necessary. It is essential. It's essential that we sit quiet during times of stress or uncertainty. Again, when I'm in that pause, I need to sit somewhere. I need to be quiet. Pause for a second. Now, when I'm at work, again, I can't. I've had all kinds of jobs where I just can't go in the bathroom. There's been times where I had gone in the bathroom and got on my knees and said, "God, take this away. I don't want to lose this job, but I'm about to kill somebody." Right? I got on my knees in the bathroom. I'll never do that again. But I did that. That's the kind of, I'll do that shit in the beginning. I'm like, God, now I wouldn't do it. Okay, but I'm just saying. Okay, but I got so used to doing it in my head. I got so used to doing that step 10 in my head. Get used to that awareness. Do it in your head constantly. Get used to that. And you're making that shift from going from that unconscious on the left side of the liabilities to living in a conscious state of being. Live in that conscious state of being as much as you can. You see? As much as you can. You're going to expand that God consciousness. This is a beautiful thing that we're here, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to feel contented sobriety when your ego's right size. And all I got to do is tap into that God's power. I got to sit quietly. Or I got to pause. I got to ask. And then I got to listen. And then I'm going to take action on the direction that I get. When we seek God's guidance, we find a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction beyond our wildest dreams. As we will learn, a higher power, God, speaks directly to us and through us. Again, I got to keep that channel clear. Resentments, fears, I got to keep that channel clear. It's so important. Again, they talk about it in step 10. They talk about it in step 4. And they talk about it again in step 11. That's how important. I got to keep this channel clear of resentments and fears and selfishness, right? And that ego, I got to keep it clear so God can come in. The sunlight of the spirit can come in and hit all those assets that's always been a part of me. And then those can grow and I can become my true self. You guys follow me? That's why I did the whole diagram on step 10, so you can see what those assets are. Tap into those assets. Tap into that conscious, behavior. Don't forget about the 4 absolutes. We saw those in step 10. They are again in step 11. They start in step 3 with selfishness and unselfishness. Okay? They're very important. If you want to know the difference between self-will and God's will, they got to pass the test. They got to be all 4 absolutes. If they pass all 4 absolutes, then there's God's will. You see? It's got to pass all 4. Is it honest? Is it absolute honest? Yes. Is it absolute unselfish? Yes. Is it absolute loving? Is it pure? Yes, yes, yes. You know it's from God. If it's not, and it doesn't, if it's only 3, it's self-will. That's why I love these little cards like that, because it's the difference between self-will and God's will. Right? I'm just looking for something. Okay. In order for two-way prayer to be successful, in order for this, we got to practice this. Practice makes perfect. We got to practice. You remember all those WhatsApp groups that we have. Everything's about practice. You know what? I have opened my life up to all of you. I have opened my life up to all of you. I've created all these groups, and I'm in there posting to show you how to do it. You know? And if you're in there, you're posting, you're showing other people how to do that. It's so important to show people how to do this. How do I apply this into my life? That's always been a big question. How do I apply this? Do you hear people talking about that in meetings, or are they busy talking about studying it or reading it? Right? Or I'm working on it. I don't work on any of this really. Only step 5, step 4 is what and then step 9 is my work. But a lot of God's leading me through this. Not necessarily my sponsor. This is teaching me. This step teaches me not to rely on my sponsor, not to rely on anybody else, not to rely on meetings, not to rely on anybody else, but the power of God. I want you to understand that. It doesn't say anything in here about my sponsor. I'm not getting inspiration from my sponsor. My sponsor's not giving me direction. I get that from God. Now, I'm not saying sometimes my sponsor does give me direction and I better follow it. Okay. But you understand what I'm telling you. It's not reliance on a sponsor. It's reliance on God. I want to read a couple things before we do this. I got this book. I love these books. If anybody wants one of these, okay, it's a big book dictionary. If anybody wants one of these, it's about $3. I can order it before Sean gets here, and I will send it home with Sean, and I'll let him get it to you all. If somebody wants it, you need to let me know soon so I can order them. They only run about $3, okay? But I want to read these definitions. They're awesome, okay? So I'm going to start off with, what is conscious? Conscious is aware by thought and observation. That's what it says for what. The next one is consciousness. It's awareness. It's awareness, knowledge, mindfulness, a realization, or it says being conscious. So I thought those were cool. Okay, so it's being aware. It's similar to step 10, right? Being aware, but it's being aware of God. And then, guess what I found in here? I was looking around, and I found something. I'm going to read it to you. It's called God conscious, right? And I thought it was awesome. So God conscious is having an awareness, again, knowledge, feeling, and understanding of or in God. So God conscious is having an understanding or an awareness of God. Then the next one underneath it I saw was God's sufficiency. And that's what really took it off. Because think about self-sufficiency. This is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get away from. We realized that in the fear inventory. We made that shift from being self-reliant to God-reliant. Now we're talking about God's sufficiency. That means relying on God, right? So it says God dependence. This is what we're talking about. Dependence upon God alone. Believing God alone has the ability to improve one's needs. That's God sufficiently. I'm going to read it. Believing God alone has the ability to provide one's needs. Man, I get everything. When I'm tapping in that, when I'm spiritually fit, I feel like I have everything I needed. I feel like I have everything I need, and I have contented sobriety. When my ego's right-sized, I have contented sobriety, and I have everything I need right at that moment. Think about that. And there was another one that I focused on when I was going through here. From this moment on, it's all about producing harmony, right? Not confusion, harmony. So I wanted to look up harmony, but I found another word. It was called harmonious, right? because it does talk about harmonious action later on in the book. It says agreed upon, pleasingly combined, consistent. That's harmonious. But harmony is pleasing agreement or understanding. Or the last one for harmony is unity. 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 That's a beautiful thing. Harmony is like unity. That's what I want to produce now. By being in presence of God, I want to bring harmony wherever I go, not confusion, because I know all about that unconscious confusion and bringing that everywhere, right? Now I want to bring harmony, peace, love, serenity, right? Anyway, I wanted to share some of these definitions. The last one I found in here that pertains to step 11 was humility. I always got to go to God humble. I got to be humble when I go there. Humility. Okay, so here's the definition. Being humble. Being humble. I thought that was one. Okay. The absence of self-pride. Guess what it is being humility? It's the absence of the ego. Okay, because it's absence of self-pride, self-will, and self-assertion. That's the ego. So humility is the absence of ego. And if I go into meditation without the ego, I'm in the place to receive and let God rule my life. You see what I'm saying? To receive direction, inspiration, humility. That's how I want to go into my morning meditation, with humility every time I want to go into God, because God's all powerful. I need to go in there being humble. He's at the top, dude. He's like the top guy with the ego at the top, if you know what I mean. Okay? So I got to be humble. That's the only way. I don't know how to explain it like that, but I have to be humble in front of God because he's all powerful and he knows everything. So if I go in there humbly, then that just gets me in that right to be open, to receive. Okay? I wanted to go over the definitions. I do have in here, in the book, I did tell you, I was going to do that. I have in the book, every time the book says we ask, and every time the word talks about meditation. All right? So if you're interested in that, I could take a copy, I could photocopy it and throw it in the chat. But anytime the book says we ask, and then anytime it talks about listening, and that's what I did. Anytime this is all we ask, and this is listening. So again, we ask, prayer, listening, meditation, 2 ears, 1 mouth. So in the effort to fulfill AA's promises, practice these principles, practice makes progress, right? Spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection, right? We're going to get quiet, and we're going to practice this right now. Is everybody okay with that? So before we begin, I'm going to tell you that guidance, what you're going to do is we're going to sit quietly. I'm actually going to read the 24-hour day book from this morning because I thought this morning was awesome. I had to sit with it for about an hour and really just let it resonate. Okay. So today's really good. I'm going to read that. I'm going to tell you how it's going to go. I'm going to read this, and then we're going to be quiet for about 3 minutes. During that 3 minutes, I really just want you to focus on the reading. All right. I don't want you to I want you to focus. So I think the best way to do that is, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start like the meditation during the reading. So I want you to close your eyes while I'm reading. Not now, not yet, but I'm just giving you all the information first. I know everybody started closing. I know Daniel was like, let's go, so everybody's got to be like, I'm just giving all the information. So when I say, okay, this is what we're going to do, I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to read, when I read the 24-hour day book, I want everyone to keep your eyes closed. I want you to let that just really resonate with you. Okay. As I'm reading that, I want you to, and then we're going to sit quiet for a couple minutes. And then I'm going to say, okay, I want you to take out your pad and I want you to write down whatever comes to your mind. And you're just going to write down whatever comes to your mind. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, in the beginning, I got birds. I heard a garbage truck. I can smell dog food. You know what I mean? I just got this, but it's about being present though. It's about being present and opening it up. We're just starting this. I need to practice this every day, all the time, to get good at it, Okay. So does anybody have any questions? If you got a question, raise your hand in the screen, anything like that. Is everybody good? Okay. Remember, we are listening to God, not just praying. You seek specific guidance, ask your higher power. Be specific with the questions. Now, guidance, what you're going to write down can consist of thoughts, images, sounds, feelings. It could be anything that comes through your mind. Sounds, feelings, right? Thoughts, images. All right. Is everybody ready to do this right now? Everybody in a comfortable, I hope everybody can, you got a sacred place. Create a sacred space. I probably should have done this in the beginning, but if you're not in a sacred place where there's other people or any distractions, you need to stop that. Can't have any distractions. You need to be in a sacred place where it's quiet and you can focus. So TV on, turn it off, whatever. You need to be in a sacred space. Okay. I want everyone to close your eyes. Oh, I got the video up, so I know who's got their eyes open. Okay. Now I want you to close your eyes because I find sometimes when I'm closing my eyes, I'm really focused on what someone's saying to me. I can really listen and I can really like feel it. When my eyes are open, I can be easily distracted. I don't know if that makes sense, but it helps me. Okay. So if everybody can close your eyes. And I want everyone to kind of think about that during this quiet time. I pray that your writing will reflect that your life is presently being guided by the spiritual principles of honesty, unselfishness, purity, and love. I pray to open myself to receive your guidance. I pray for the will to take your direction in a timely manner, that I may continue to grow spiritually and experience a profound life of serenity and joy. God, what else would you have me do today? Amen. I'm going to read the daily reflections for today. It's May 3rd. Now, keep your eyes closed. Of course, sometimes you might, hey, if you get something from God, I'm not going to tell you, write it down. I always write it down. When I get something from God, I always write it. I get inspired in meetings, I'm going to write it down. So even though I say close your eyes, if you get inspired, write it down. Okay, May 3rd. AA teaches us to take it easy. We learn how to relax and to stop worrying about the past or the future. We give up our resentments and hates and tempers, to stop being critical of people and try to help them instead. That's what easy does it means. So in the time that's left to me to live, I'm going to try to take it easy, to relax, not to worry, to try to be helpful to others and to trust God. For what's left of my life is my motto going to be easy does it. Meditation for the day. This is where I was really sitting with this meditation. It's the meditation for the day. It really moved me. I must overcome myself. That'd be my ego. I can truly forgive other people for injuries done to me. The self in me cannot forgive injuries. The very thought of wrongs means that myself is in the foreground. Since self cannot forgive, I must overcome my selfishness. I must cease trying to forgive those who fretted and wronged me. It is a mistake for me to even think about these injuries. I must aim at overcoming myself in my daily life. See how that pertains to 10 and 11, right? I got to overcome myself. I must aim at overcoming myself in my daily life, and then I will find there is nothing in me that remembers injury, because the only thing injured, myself, is gone. I like to think sometimes the only thing that's injured is my ego, right? Prayer for the day. I pray that I may hold no resentments. I pray that my mind may be washed clean of all past hates and fears. We're going to now take 3 minutes. 3 minutes quiet meditation. And I'm going to try to figure out how to set a timer here. We're going to start that right now. Okay, now I'm going to ask everyone if you could take out your pen and your pad. And we're going to take just 2 minutes. And you just write down all your thoughts. Write down whatever comes to mind. All right. Again, it can consist of thoughts, images, feelings, sounds. And again, the first time doing this, I just got a few words. All right. I'm just getting in touch with my senses. Okay. Now, some of us have been doing this for a while. We've had some time practicing. We might get, hey, God's going to talk to us, and we're open and how God's going to talk to us. You see, and that's just how it's going to be for some of us that's been doing this. Now, when I started out, I was just opening the channel, so the channel wasn't wide open. It was sort of fragmented, and so I was getting fragmented stuff. Words, images, sounds. You see, we're just opening, just making contact, just opening this up. Once it starts to be open more, then I start to understand what I'm doing here. It takes time and practice. We got to work at it. You see? Okay, so let's take 2 minutes of silence and just write down whatever comes to mind. All right. How'd everybody do? So, um, we realize these messages can be very personal and are normally discussed with your sponsor. We share them in a group with each other because that helps us get closer, by sharing that. You know, um, if you believe the group can benefit from what you receive, I'm going to ask you to share it, but only share what you wrote. No elaboration. No elaborate. Only share what you wrote down. In addition, you'll be helping those who are still struggling with meditation. Uh, when so let's experience what this is like. Again, what we just did, we did morning quiet time, and I asked you all to join me, right? Or you all just join me, right? And we just did it together. It says, hey, morning, we ask people to join us. We have consistently about 5 or 6 people posting in the morning meditation. Some people are new at it. I've been doing it since 1999. Okay, so I have days where I do really good, and again, days where I kind of struggle, and I'm like, oh, I need help me, God, So, um, okay, I'm gonna read first. I want to read mine from this morning, and then I'm gonna read what I got just now. Okay, now I'm still recording. Once I'm done, then I'm gonna stop the recording, or I'm gonna pause it because I'm gonna pause the recording while everybody shares, so nobody's recorded. Unless you don't care. If you don't care, I'll let you go. But most likely, I just stop it so nobody's recording because some people don't like that. So I'm just going to pause the recording, okay? After I share. Okay? And then when we, at the end, before I pick up and just wrap everything up, then I'll hit the recording for that last little bit to close the meeting up. Is everybody good with that? Okay. So this is what I got today. Again, I was in morning meditation. I like to create a ritual, a morning ritual. I like to create. So my morning ritual is I get up at like 5:30, 5:20. Sunrise is at 5:45. And now it's about 5:50. I have a nice big, I got one of those big comfy chairs with the big cushion on it. You know what I'm talking about? It's a big one. It's a big one, and I sit in it. I feel like a little kid sitting in it, but it's so comfortable. And I have it so it's like on my front porch for when that morning sun comes up, it first hits the chair. So I'm sitting in the chair doing my morning meditation, sitting in the sun. And it's just cool. I hear all the birds and everything. And so what I think about when I go into meditation is what is God going to say to me? Because I'm saying, hey, God, direct my thinking, divorce it from self-pity. What are you going to have me do today? How is God going to talk to me? So this is how I wrote it. Okay. I didn't write it during the meeting like this, but I wrote it. This is how I wrote it this morning. My precious child, never forget where you came from. You must forgive yourself before you can forgive others. Don't play me by not forgiving yourself. See, it's God talking to me. He told me, don't play God by not forgiving yourself. Forgiveness is pure from the heart. Forgiveness is the key to serenity. If you're unselfish, you'll find nothing in you that's injured, threatened, because selfishness and self-centeredness is gone. Ego is being reduced to right-sized, and you'll feel more contented sobriety. Turn all things to me, the Father of light. Amen. That's what I got this morning. Now I'm telling you, it's taken me a while to form it into a prayer. It just takes a while. In the beginning, I'm going to tell you, this is what I got. Now, I didn't look at my morning meditation, so it's going to be very similar to what I got, because this is what I wrote down. I didn't write down my precious child. I just wrote whatever. So I wrote, forgiveness is the key to serenity. You see how I'm already focused. If I remembered from what I wrote, I wouldn't have rewrote it. If I remembered what I wrote this morning, I wouldn't have but I didn't look, you see? And again, I almost got the same thing. I got, forgiveness is pure from the heart. Who are you not to forgive yourself? Because I sometimes struggle with that. The things I've done to myself. I can forgive you, but man, I've done all this to me, and I did all of it. I was the master creator. I was my own God because I created it all, and then I blame myself. But who am I not to forgive myself? Am I still playing God? Because the fact is, if I haven't forgiven myself, I am still playing God all the way back to that third column of resentment. If I can't forgive myself, I am still playing God. That was huge for me. I still struggle with it, but I'm getting better. I'm getting way better with it. I'm more on the conscious side than the unconscious side. You see? And then the last thing I put is live with a clear conscience. I never knew what that meant. Having my conscience clear. That means nothing's bothering me. Contented sobriety. My ego's right-sized. I'm content sobriety. And that's a clear conscience. A clear conscience. Not one with, remorse or guilt, shame. It's clear. Okay. Let me just pause this recording. All right. These steps suggest an action that, when taken as specified, will improve conscious contact with God as you understand Him. All the steps are ultimately experience a state of consciousness. All of them were experiencing a state of consciousness. And each step builds up all of the previous steps in a prescribed manner. By step 9, you begin to experience oneness with all people and all things. You subsequently entered the world of the spirit and began to be conscious and awake throughout the day. Remember, we talked about having that awareness, that constant awareness. Totally aware for the first time of what you are creating, experiencing in this state, then takes you to a daily discipline in step 11. Throughout the course of the day, you constantly shift your thought life. Remember in step 10, right? I'm constantly shifting my thought life. I'm using step 10 throughout the day. So I'm constantly shifting my thought life when necessary in order to find truth and to be in the contact of true self. while your false selves were dominated by an array of liabilities on that left side. Your true self is characterized by the list of the wonderful assets. You begin to use the spiritual tools you have been given to change your thought life and to follow those previously hidden assets to emerge. You are now awake and aware of all that you are creating. Your life takes on new meaning. Step 11 requires maintaining a recovered state of consciousness. A recovered state of I don't suffer from mental hopeless state of being, right? A recovered state of consciousness and to grow spiritually in order to maintain sanity. Remember that we have an illness of mind, body, emotions, and spirit. You have been taken to a state of consciousness that has resulted in our being recovered from our disease. A recovery that came out through our taking of series of actions involving the mind, body, and the spirit, having entered through the 10th step, the world of the spirit, meaning we have obtained God consciousness or pure consciousness. You will now pay closer attention to your thought life as you create the type of life that you want to live. Remember, I talked about that recreation in step 11. You're recreating your life with the help of God, right? It's not like I recreated it in the beginning before. Now I'm doing it with the help of God, you know? I want to introduce you to a couple of things here, but I want to see if I have them in order. Right. So I think some people are familiar with this pamphlet called How to Listen to God. I use it off a lot. All right. It's a nice little 4-page pamphlet. It's going to tell you exactly how to just do what we just did. This was written by a guy named John Batterson. He was a personal friend of Dr. Bob's, and this was written in the 1930s. Okay. And this tells you exactly the same thing. Okay. So that was written in the 30s. I have this thing called The Quiet Time. It's more like this here. Again, it's a pamphlet. And it was a guy named called Quiet Time. It's this guy from an Oxford group member, Howard Rose is his name. Now you can get this for free. They have PDF formats. Again, it's the exact same thing on how to listen to God, except this was written in the 40s. So I got something written in the 30s, got something written in the 40s. Okay. Now I'm really looking back at a lot of this. A lot of this that I've been doing is all old school. What were they doing and getting that 75% recovery rate? What was going on that's not going on today? Right. So again, we're talking about pamphlets. I got this other one. I went to Akron Intergroup and look what I found. Okay. It says from the Akron AA group, how to listen, meditate. It gives you the exact same thing on how to listen to God. Again, this was written in 1955. Okay. So we got 30s, 40s, 50s. I'm going to take it a whole nother step. I got this. It's called Listening to the Inner Voice. This is actually a moral rearmament, which is another form of Oxford group, but this was published in 1990, 90, 92, and again in 98. Again, it's the same thing. Listening to the voice within. It's the same thing. They just rewrote the pamphlet about how to listen to God. You see? Now you got to understand, there's like four pamphlets here I got. And then I got another one on how to begin. This one goes back even later. This one's from the 20s. How do I begin? And it's all talking about listening to God. You can get all these in PDF, all free on the internet. But if you want the PDF, that's fine. I use the How to Listen to God because it's more accurate. Again, I do a history presentation on this, and I have the pamphlets all, so I got 30s, 40s, 50s, and then 90s, just to show you, that this is still happening today. And this is what this morning meditation was the absolute must. Where did that go? You know what? Before Bill died, Bill was asked if there's anything that he would have changed in the book. And guess what he said? He said that he would not have put awakening on step 12. He would have left it as experience, because when it went to printing, you see, he did a group conscious. You got to understand what's happening here. In 1950, he was turning the power over to the group conscious. Then he went to the group conscious, and the group conscious said, we're going to change it to awakening. He was like, yeah, okay. And then when they changed it, he said, no, I want to change it back. And he couldn't, because it already went to printing. Not only that, but he was no longer in control. The group conscious was. So if he could have changed it, he would have left it as experience, because originally it was written, having had an experience as a result of these steps. He would have left it as that. You see? And so the other thing he said was that he wished that he had kept the prayer meditation as the most important thing. They took that away, and the whole prayer meditation was completely gone. This meditation is completely unheard of. It was completely erased in the 80s, 60s, 70s, and the 80s. It was gone. It was gone. It was only brought back by Wally P. in 1999. You know? Um, and so anyway, to me, again, Sean shares his experience with this change in your life. I'm just going to say, if you're new here, are you up for a 30-day challenge? You know what? Experiment. Try this for 30 days and just see what happens. Just see if you're willing, if you're disciplined enough. Are you disciplined enough to try this for 30 days? Because God says we are not disciplined. So he's going to discipline. Are you willing to try this for 30 days? Because that's what I gave to Sean. I gave Sean a 30-day challenge, which means after 30 days, you ain't got to do it no more. And guess what? 2 years later, he's still doing it. He's still doing it. He only started with a 30-day challenge because at first you're like, I don't know how this is going to go. And I don't know. And all of a sudden it just takes off. And then you just keep doing it. 2 years later, he's still doing it. And he just told you he's had amazing, it's changed his life. I'm going to tell you the difference from that first sobriety I had for 5 years, I was missing this vital piece. No one talked about it. So, I didn't know anything about prayer, meditation, or tapping into God or any of that. Again, I lived in a place where there was no solution. I suffered and I drank. When I got sober, when I finally got sober, I wasn't even in that. I was living in Texas. I was in the military. So I was already gone. That was all the way on the East Coast where that was. Anyway, what I'm going to say is if you want a deeper experience, this is all about a deeper experience. Anytime it says, we ask God, I want you to think about what would God say to you? And how would he say it? Is he going to say, my precious daughter or my precious son? I don't want you to be so hard. Stop beating yourself up, right? Go help your cousin or go help. You don't know where that message is going to come from. I want to keep that channel open. You know, I have a handout from one of my workshops. I don't know where it is, but I did a meditation. And my first meditation, I put in there, call Jeff. Now I thought it was just me. I didn't know it was God's will. But I did call Jeff eventually, and he was suicidal. And I went and talked to him, sat with him and helped him. You know what I mean? But what if I thought it wasn't just self-will and I never called him? What would have happened? I don't know. I don't know. But you see, this meditation is very powerful. You just never know what you're going to get. And when I get a direction, I got to act on it. I act on one time where I said, go see Sean in the hospital. Well, not just Sean, different Sean. Go see Sean in the hospital. When I got off my meditation, I immediately went and saw him in the hospital, and he wanted to share some stuff with me. You don't know what you're going to get. Just try it as an experiment and just see what happens. I was given a 30-day challenge by Wally P. And he said, just try it. Wally P was my sharing partner. Wally P was the author of Back to Basics book. I became really tight with Wally. I did over 300 Back to Basics workshops between 1999 and 2008. I did a bunch with Wally. I did a bunch with Catherine. I did a whole bunch. Now, I'm going to tell you, that's me going through this process again and again and again and again and again. Now, I'm bound to have, this is where the idea was born, me doing these workshops. The idea was born was after I did a workshop, I'd have an experience. As I was presenting it, I'd have an experience. So I got to write down, then I got to add that in. You see how each time I present a workshop, it's another different level. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've done all those workshops. That's my ego telling you that. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean anything because after 2008, I didn't record nothing. I just started recording this the last couple of years. Okay. Now, Sean will tell you that every time he's worked with me, because I'm his sponsor, it's been a completely different experience, because each time I work with somebody, I have an experience. So I write on the book, whatever page number I was, and I write it down. So the next time I'm taking someone through, I can share my experience with them. There was a time me and Sean were working together. We both had a spiritual experience at the same time. At the same time. I can't even explain that. We were both going, holy shit, wow, do you feel that? And he's like, yeah. You know, God moves us. God helps us connect to each other, and we help each other. I couldn't have that experience by myself. Sean had to be in my life to help me have that experience. You see? So for a deeper experience, I want you to take these questions into meditation. Okay? I always like to give up these at the end. Have you established a conscious contact with God? Have you established one? Do you really want one? Do you really want one? Do I believe it is even possible for me to have one with God? And are you committed to improving your conscious contact? Are you committed to improving this? Because the only way you're going to improve it is doing morning meditation, doing nightly review, doing meditation after nightly review, right? And start practicing 10, step 10. Have I developed my own? Have you developed your own prayer practice? Here's a big one that I really want everyone to look at. Each day, how much time do I consistently dedicate to prayer and meditation? I got 3 things for you. Morning. How much time do you dedicate consistently to your morning meditation? How much time do you dedicate doing step 10 during the day? Because again, we start our day with morning meditation. Throughout the day, I'm asking God for help. How many times are you putting, how much time are you dedicated to prayer and meditation during the day, doing that step 10? God, remove this. And then how much time are you dedicated to doing your meditation at night? I want you to really look at that. How much time are you actually spending? Guess what? When I first did this, it was like 3 or 4 or 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I was like, wait a minute. My sponsor looked at me. I want to see that. And I showed it to him. You know what he said? You ain't spending enough time with God. I thought I was. I thought he goes, really? Is 15 minutes enough? You know, for someone that's going to keep you sober? I spend more time. I started to spend more time, like while I was driving. I was a truck driver. I could spend more time while I'm driving in meditation. You know, I spent more time with God that way. You know? Okay. Do you believe, this is the last question, do you believe that prayer and meditation are as vital to the health of your spiritual life as air that you breathe? Is vital as air. Again, you know, we got morning meditation on WhatsApp. We got nightly review on WhatsApp. If you're not in those groups, join them. Start practicing it, man. Start practicing it. You know, me and Sean, and we decided to create this group and just expose ourselves to guys, show you all how to do this, man. Show you how to do this. And as we're doing that, as we're showing you how, we're growing too. You know, I used to be like, oh, I don't want to share it with anybody. It's so private and all this stuff, and I keep it to myself or just share it with my sharing partner or whatever, you know. And I learned, you know what? That's what my ego wants me to do. My ego doesn't want me to share it. My ego wants me to keep everything to myself, you know. And that's why I share. Not only that, but it makes me be accountable. It makes me be I go in there and I see 5 people sharing. I'm like, damn it, I got to do it now. You see, that's the ego talking though. Ego's like, all right, all right. You see? And I go do it. It makes me be accountable. It makes me be accountable to be in discipline because by nature, I am undisciplined by nature. All right, I want to read one more thing before we end this. And I like to end this with a beautiful prayer. All right. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in parting in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Again, amen. I love reading that because it reminds me of the third step, being reborn into the spiritual thing, right? Being reborn into this eternal life, but being reborn. At the end of that third step prayer, we've been reborn, right? Because now we're in the spiritual realm now. Again, thank you all for being here, being a part of this. And I know I went over a little bit, but I hope everybody enjoyed that experience and trying this for an experiment. You know, join us in the group and post and be a part of this. Be a part of the group. We got a massive working group going on in WhatsApp. And again, let's end this with a moment of silent meditation. Reminding you to think of someone that might be sick and suffering that needs to hear the message. Let's take a minute. I always like to end with the serenity prayer, just because it's simple, it's short and simple, but it also makes a lot of sense. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.